Here's where we are. And the reason we're here, maybe more than any other, is because opportunism knows no bounds in politics, especially when it comes to fellow podcasters. You know, I look at pretty much anybody who's looking at the impact that Shama Sawant is having right now and the importance of this primary election that's coming up on the same day as Abdul El-Sayed's election in Michigan for the Senate. And they are two substantially important elections. One is in the Democratic primary, one is an independent running in a jungle primary. And yet, it seems to me that only Savvy Sabs and RBN are giving Shama's campaign the attention that it deserves, like we are. We are very grateful that Crystal Ball and Ryan Grimm are going to be interviewing Shama on Monday. But that came from pressure from the likes of all of us, those that are not part of shit-lib Democratic Party politics. But you know who is a part of it? You know who does speak ill of Ilhan? You know who is a raving lunatic of a Zionist? Like Little Ben. It's somebody who I haven't covered in a while, but if you're looking for the person in politics that has as punchable a face as Ben Shapiro, it's David Pakman.
Democratic Party is showing the early signs of the same disease that destroyed the Republican Party. I've got so many friends on the left texting me and saying, David, we're not going to allow the same thing to happen on the left that Trump did to MAGA, that Trump and MAGA did to Republicans, are we?
You don't have any friends. So you're already lying about my friends on the left. Whatever the definition that Pakman came up with for what is considered the left, I don't want to know it. Because it's definitely not what the thinking person would do. And yes, Phil, shout out to Katie Halper, friend of the show, somebody I love. I think the world of Katie. I think she does an amazing job, and she just had Shama on. Yes, thank you. You see, when I haven't talked about him in a while, it just kind of comes back to me. David A. Pakman. We'll continue.
Republicans, back in 2010, their leaders laughed at the Tea Party. Conspiracy theorists, they're far-right internet trolls, they're not going to do anything. And then the Tea Party took over local organizations, threatened primaries, built their own media universe, and eventually were part of a process that gave us Donald Trump. The left and Democrats can't make the same mistake. There is a small group of far-left extremists gaining influence inside youth groups and party organizations because they spend all day online organizing and enforcing ideological purity and attacking anyone who disagrees.
What in the fuck do you do every day? You know, I remember when I first heard this nerdlinger talk back in 2016. He is somebody who I would rather watch paint dry for entertainment than listen to. You see, true left populists like personality. They don't like drones. They don't just want to hear talking points. That's what comfortable liberals in the suburbs and urban dwellings, that's what they want to hear. They just want to be reminded of what it is that makes them comfortable. And Pakman serves that up on a silver platter. And as you can see, based on where he lives, which is in the Boston suburbs, and it appears to be a very comfortable home that he's living in, he's made himself quite a bit of money with his operation. He wasn't making that money when he was talking about working class ideals. But once he figured out how to get the money from the shit libs, he was in, baby, all the way. So when he talks like this, he's talking like this left-wing extremists because he's trying to protect his gravy train. That's his only objective. So I hope that most of you can see through this.
Now, let me be very clear. I am not talking about people who want Medicare for all and affordable housing. I want all that stuff. I'm with all that stuff. I'm a social democrat in the style of Northern Europe. Of course I want those things.
You only want them so long as it doesn't affect your bottom line, which is why you will never, ever push for it the way that a channel with your reach would possibly be able to do. This is why, even though I'm not a fan of Hassan Piker, I'll take him over your scumbag ass any day of the week and twice on Sunday. And I hope everybody else would agree, because at least somebody like Piker has the courage of his convictions. It's not about personality here. It's about legitimacy. And Pakman has no legitimacy as far as I'm concerned.
These are folks who treat political warfare like a full-time job. And when they can't build their own coalition, they attach themselves to popular causes. They take real concerns about healthcare, housing, police misconduct, and use them to sell what is actually an authoritarian worldview. Now, there are things in DSA, for example, Democratic Socialists of America, that are good and that I agree with. But there's also some stuff in there that I think doesn't make any sense. I saw their new platform promises a country where you have no debt, you pay no rent, no mortgage, you receive publicly funded housing, publicly funded retirement, food, education, energy, medicine, transportation. And it sounds incredible because it is incredible. How would they create it? Government ownership of the largest corporations and of entire industries, universal rent control, abolishing police and prisons, and abolishing the Senate and replacing our political system. Some of these ideas are reasonable to a degree. For example, I support universal health care, and I've talked about 4 or 5 ways that we could get to it. I want affordable housing, and I've done a dozen interviews with housing experts on what would and wouldn't work to get us there. I support progressive taxation. We need to collect more taxes from the very rich. Voting rights have been hurt in this country.
Now, of course, I don't watch this dumbass, but I am willing to bet that he probably has not said anything critical of Governor Newsom eliminating the billionaire tax in California. Probably hasn't said a word about that. Now, when it comes to housing, we all know why housing is not affordable. It is not built to be affordable. It is built for profit. It has always kind of been that way. And a lot of cities don't want it. A lot of suburban areas don't want it. You try putting affordable housing, apartments in wealthy suburban areas, liberal or conservative, doesn't matter. You see just how far the wealthy in those communities will fight to make sure that the housing there is not affordable. Kind of like where you live, Mr. Pakman. You see, the thing about David Pakman is that he lives a very affluent life. See, he doesn't want the riffraff in his backyard. It's somebody else's problem. You know, kind of like those that support fracking, but they'll never want a fracking well in their backyard. It's somebody else's problem. Same with the data centers, like Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary. He would never have that data center anywhere near his property. It's somebody else's problem. And this is exactly how Pakman is talking. It's somebody else's problem, not his. When capitalism breaks, this is what you get. And he is going to protect his investment, which is his podcast. It's all he's got. He doesn't have anything else. He couldn't possibly. He's too much of a dour personality to do anything else.
We need police reform. So there's elements of this that are great, and any social democrat like me will tell you we got to do that. But you bundle it together, and this fantasy in which capitalism, private industry, and major parts of the government simply disappear, Most Americans don't want that. Most Americans understand that there is no way that you could impose that without extraordinary authoritarianism. My one hesitation about confronting this now, and why I went back and forth, is the midterms. Publicly exposing the rot could make moderate voters think the entire Democratic Party has been infected. But I don't think silence is really going to hide it. I saw a crazy thing from the weekend where there was a college Democrats convention, which I was actually invited to participate in, and I couldn't make it.
Actually, he wanted to go, and they told him to kick rocks. That's what my source told me. My source, who I trust wholeheartedly, said that Pakman was clamoring to go to the college Democrats convention, but they said, "We're not interested, David. You might feel a little bit better at the senior caucus. It's probably more your speed, more your audience."
Hassan Piker was dressed like Mao, and I guess Destiny tried to show up, and he was banned from entering allegedly because the Mao-dressed Piker didn't want him there. Republicans are going to put these clips everywhere. Like, people seem crazy when they see this stuff, and they are going to abolish the police and abolish borders and abolish prisons and play them on a loop for 6 months. If I were an average voter with no knowledge of these online personalities, which most of these people are, most people don't follow this sort of thing. They're busy living their lives and working and doing all this stuff. If I were an average,
which is what gives you carte blanche to just lie your ass off to them because they don't know any better. Am I right, David?
Average voter with no knowledge of these online personalities, I would find these images and a lot of this stuff very alarming. So as I said last week, and so many of you agreed with me, Democrats must act now and intelligently. The centrists don't really do anything, make very milquetoast fringe suggestions that you don't even really push for. Not working, okay? This other thing of like end everything, it's a sort of destructive accelerationism, that's also not going to work. So I think that what we need here are no apologetics for dictatorship, no apologetics for authoritarianism, no harassment, no anti-Semitism, no allowing online factions to decide which liberals may enter the room. You know, what would I even have been allowed at that college Democrats thing? They invited me months ago.
I seriously want somebody from the college Democrats to say, "No, David, we didn't invite you. We didn't want you there. You came up with an excuse to make it seem like you were the person that they wanted." No, nobody cares. And I'll be the first to say, I am not a supporter of Hassan Piker. I am not a supporter of Mao Zedong or Joseph Stalin. But you, as much as anybody in so-called left politics, are why we're descending into fascism. Your career and your well-paying income is your priority. I am willing to bet my bottom dollar that you have not said a single fucking word about Shama Sawant other than to denigrate her, if you've even gone there. Have you said anything about Adam Smith co-authoring the merging of the U.S. and Israeli military bill? The moment I knew David Pakman was a bastard was when he advocated for regime change in Venezuela in 2017. Then he supported the war in Ukraine, and he is supporting Israel as we speak. And you'd be surprised what percentage of the Democratic Party is in line with him. It's a lot bigger than you think. But as we've said, this is all based on class. And he believes himself to be of the elite class. He isn't. but he is one of those people. And you don't even have to mention that he's Jewish. Everyone knows he's a Jew. He's a fucking Zionist, and he's very proud of it. But he's a liberal Zionist. So, you know, he does it politely. While another 1,000 Palestinian children are maimed and murdered. But hey, that's a fancy house in a fancy neighborhood that he lives in. And that ain't cheap. It costs a lot of blood, money.
I don't know. I mean, I couldn't go, so we didn't find out. So we just need normal people to participate, join local committees, attend conventions, get involved with state parties, and let's turn the DNC into something that works. Many reasonable people doing a little can defeat both the centrist do-nothings and the hardcore extremists who would get nothing done. Republicans believed they were going to control the extremists. They were like, we got these people under control. The extremists took over the party. Democrats can still prevent that outcome, but we've got to get them to get things under control right now. I've said before, I've never been a Democrat. I don't care about the Democratic Party beyond who offers the better candidates, and usually it's Democrats over Republicans. But we've got to make sure that we don't allow that party, if it is the vessel, at least for now, to something better than what Republicans are offering, to be hijacked. This is about let's include, but not allow any extreme faction to take over. And that is what I think makes the most sense. Can it be done reasonably and without self-inflicted damage between now and the midterms? I don't know. I hope so.
Now you can rest assured that Pakman does not support Mamdani or anything that he's doing, because the line in the sand is whether or not you support Israel. That is a line he will not cross. He is he is a Zionist. Forget saying liberal Zionist. He's just a Zionist, period. That is what he is. And I don't know why you're throwing up comments like that. I am trying to make a point here about why the idea that you're going to break through this force field within the Democratic Party is a near impossible lift. It doesn't mean you can't elect people within the Democratic Party, but the party itself, like the people that are going to get amped up about supporting AOC, for example, or even Ro Khanna for that matter, for president in 28, the guardrails will be there. The superdelegates are not going away. Corporate special interests are not going away. And Zionism is not going away. Not for the elites. If the party has proven one thing, the elites have moved on, and they will decide one way or the other, where is the more favorable balance going to come from? And that's who will win.